Hello and welcome to the Charles Cook Podcast. The focus of this podcast is state and local issues here in the state of Tennessee. You can follow my podcast on many different platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, a lot of the Spotify, stuff like that. Just search the Charles Cook Podcast and you should be able to find me. Today, my guest is David Seal. He is the Jefferson County Republican Party chairman, and they've got an issue with eminent domain there in Jefferson County, and Jefferson City. So I invited David on to talk about it. So David, welcome and tell us what's going on in Jefferson City and Jefferson County.
Well, thank you for having me, Charles.
You're welcome.
Eminent domain is on the table, and it's on the radar of Jefferson County citizens these days, simply because the Jefferson City government, City Council, is attempting to forcefully take 95 acres from Jefferson Memorial Hospital and their parent company, supposedly for a recreational park. And Charles, as you know, eminent domain is not mentioned in the Constitution, but property taking is in the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. And those takings are limited to public use. And ever since the government's been taking property, there's been an argument about the suitability of those takings and whether or not it meets the definition of public use. And I've got a lot to say about that tonight, Charles.
Okay, well, let's say it and let's get it out in the open and tell us what's going on there.
Okay, wonderful. Just last week, the City Council of Jefferson City, in a 3 yes, 1 no, 1 abstention vote, voted to impose eminent domain to take 95 acres of property from the parent company of Jefferson Memorial Hospital. And your listeners need to understand there's 2 parcels of property there that are in play. One parcel of property that the hospital is actually located on pays a lease to both Jefferson City and Jefferson County governments. The parcel of property that's in question here is 95 acres, more or less, that basically surround the Jefferson Memorial Complex hospital building. That's what Jefferson City claims that they want to take forcefully and use for a recreational facility. Now, I want everybody to think about this on this podcast for just a minute, Charles. Think about the biggest park you have ever seen in your life, the biggest recreational facility that you have ever been to, something like Dollywood or Opryland or somewhere like that. We're talking about something that probably doesn't exceed 95 acres.
Right.
They are interested in taking this, they say, for recreational purposes. And that is the first red flag that comes up in this. The second thing is the suitability of the taking altogether. And that is, most people, when they think about eminent domain, think about property being taken for roads and sidewalks and school buildings and things that just have to be in a certain place, and they have to be able to acquire the property in order to do this. The interstate system is one example. I would think that municipal airports would be one where you just have to have it in a certain place. Roads, you could see that a road would have to go a particular place, and eminent domain may have to be used for these purposes that are absolutely necessary. Well, is a park absolutely necessary? We have to ask ourselves that question. Do we have to take property? Well, the answer is no. Right. It's a non-essential purpose. And that's my argument with it. And there's many other people that make the same argument. I guess the second thing is, does the park that Jefferson City is proposing have to be on that particular 95-acre tract in the city? there are several people that are saying that the parks that Jefferson City currently owns, properties they could use for a park development, have been left to deteriorate. So why do they need another 95 acres if they can't take care of the property they have? That's been an ongoing thing for years, and even some of that land was donated by a private citizen for them to use as a park, and they have not fully capitalized or developed that park as a park. So one has to question why they want this 95 acres in the location right beside the hospital, right where the hospital would need to expand their services and expand their business enterprise. Why there? We think there's probably some nefarious things that are being thought about under the table. Maybe a business park or a business development or a hotel complex, that sort of thing. That has not been stated by the city. That's just assumed by people who follow this, and they speculate on what this might be, because a 95-acre park, give me a break.
Right. So, and so I know a little bit about Jefferson City and Jefferson County. So I know that Jefferson Memorial is the only hospital in Jefferson County, correct?
Yes, and not only is it the only one, they are interested in expanding the hospital. They employ about 350 people, good paying jobs. If this property is taken, they are not going to be able to expand. And think about that. It's the only 4-star hospital in this region.
Yeah. And of course, I live in Hamlin County, next to Jefferson County, and I know that, hey, a lot of people from Hamlin County go to Jefferson Memorial. It's a Tenova hospital. Most of the things here in Hamlin County is coveted. So it gives you, depending on your insurance and stuff, it gives you an option to go somewhere like that and get different care at a different hospital under a different company. And so my concern is something like this, do you end up running Tenova out of Jefferson County, out of Jefferson City, because we had them in Morristown and they're no longer here. They've been gone about 10 to 12 years now.
Well, you think about this, Charles. We've got at least 1,000 people that work for the county school system. Their insurance is tied with Tenova. There's other companies that are tied with Tenova. This company is an excellent company. They want to expand. They want to broaden their services in Jefferson County. And on top of that, there are senior citizens in every county that surround Jefferson County, Charles. Jefferson, Hamlin, Granger, Sevier, Knox, even Knox County would use Jefferson Memorial so they wouldn't have to drive to Nashville. And they offer some fairly sophisticated services at Jefferson Memorial, and it's just a slap in their face for Jefferson City government to be doing this to them.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's the only hospital in Jefferson County. Jefferson County is a fairly large county, especially compared to Hamlin County. And so for a hospital to come in and make that kind of investment, then the city come in and try to take their property, through force is that's kind of nuts, if you ask me, for
right.
Trying
and I
to
wanted to
be
elaborate
nice.
just a little bit on what the county government is doing. I guess I can go ahead and speak to this because part of it was in the newspaper today. I have written a resolution for the county commission opposing this eminent domain activity of Jefferson City. As you know, our county government and Jefferson City government, for that matter, collects lease payments from the hospital on the property. at least on the property that the hospital complex is on. They are constructing a resolution. Right now, we've got 14 out of 21 co-sponsors on the resolution to oppose the taking of the property by Jefferson City. And we're also asking the legislature in that resolution to narrow the definition of public use. And Charles, I wanted to say a couple of things about that. These cases of eminent domain that are opposed almost always hinge on the definition of public use. And public use is the definitive statement in the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution on property takings. It's a limitation of power. Some people think it's a license for government to take property, but actually it's a limitation. And if you read the Kelo case, you read especially the dissent that Clarence Thomas wrote in the Kelo case, in the Kelo versus New London case, you'll see that he describes the takings clause as a limitation of power. And there's just too many city and county governments that don't see it as a limitation of power. They see it as a license to take property. And we've got to make these city and county governments understand this. And I hope we're teaching this in our public schools.
Chances no. Yeah. So do you know the folks that actually, the council members that voted for this?
Yes, the vote count is as follows. When it was moved for consideration, Mayor Mitch Kane voted yes. Councilman Rocky Melton voted yes. Councilwoman Eileen Combs voted yes. Councilman Kevin Bunch voted no. And Councilwoman Sheila Perkey abstained. So that is the actual vote count. And if your viewers are interested in this, to express their point of view, my suggestion is to talk to Kevin and tell him you appreciate him voting no, and speak with Mayor Mitch Kane, Councilman Melton, and Councilwoman Combs, and express, if you object to this taking, express to them that you object to it. I would say that Councilwoman Perky's worth a call too. If you want to let her know that you appreciate her abstaining from the vote, which is essentially a vote of no.
Yeah, well, but it would have been nice to have her vote no,
Yeah.
If the third one had voted, would have abstained, would the vote had passed if there was 2 abstentions, 2 yeses and 1 no? Okay.
No, it takes 3 out of 5 for it to pass, and it passed on 1 reading. It's, if it'd been an ordinance, it would have taken 2 readings, but since it was a resolution to proceed with eminent domain, 3 out of 5 trigger the action to take the property.
Yeah.
And
okay. So what's the next step in the process as far as what the city is going to do? Do you know?
I'm sure they have turned their hired attorney loose to contact the property owner and start the proceeding of eminent domain. In a lot of these cases, Charles, I don't know how closely you follow this, but I certainly have. They will use the power of eminent domain as a gun to the head of the property owner and say, okay, you can sell it to us voluntarily. We'll give you XYZ money for it. Or you can spend $200,000 and go to court and you'll get the eminent domain price on it. Well, in a lot of these cases, the property owner rolls over and sells it, quote unquote, voluntarily.
Right.
Well, when they do that, and there's no restrictive covenants on the property, they can do as they darn well please with the property. Had it been taken for a public use purpose and adjudicated as an eminent domain action in court, they would be limited to what the court allowed them to take the property for. So my guess is they're going to try to hoodwink the hospital into selling this property voluntarily, and then do as they darn well please with it. There's all kinds of rumors floating around about what kind of development is going to go on the property, being private development. I'm not going to go into all those rumors, but there's suspicion in the community that they want to do something with it other than a recreation park. And that's one of the reasons I led into this interview saying, how many parks have you seen that's 95 acres?
Right.
I don't think there is any.
So I had a question here. How does anybody have a speculation? I'm sure they've had to talk about this in the council meeting of what the land value, what the value of this land may be appraised at, what it would be worth.
When property is taken in the state of Tennessee under eminent domain, there is a requirement that normally ordered by the court that 2 appraisals be taken and the property value based on those 2 appraisals. And I think it's the decision of the court as to the value of the property based on those. And that was required under an act that was passed in 2006 called Public Act 863 is Tennessee's eminent domain action from 2006. Of course, that was right on the heels of the Kelo decision, and they just require 2 appraisals before the property is transferred. And I think that's how the court determines the price. As I was saying, we got a bill passed in 2017 that taxes the cost of those appraisals and the engineering fees to the condemning body, whoever they are, whether it's state or county government or city government. They have to pay those fees. The eminent domain price, though, Charles, as you know, is always less than what you can get for it if you put it on the market and try to sell it in the real estate market.
Yeah, well, the reason why I was asking is, I mean, how does the voters in Jefferson City feel about the city using their taxpayer dollars to take property that could potentially benefit them with health care?
Well, they're not pleased about it, and I think that's going to be expressed in uncertain terms, no uncertain terms, on Tuesday the 21st, when the city has their work session at 5 p.m. So this coming Tuesday, November 21st, 5 p.m., City Hall in Jefferson City. Show up and let them know what you think about this. And there's going to be a lot of people there. I think it's going to be a packed room. And I think the voters in Jefferson City are going to be speaking in very certain and stark terms about this.
Yeah. Well, they should. I mean, you've got a huge risk here. You got a risk of losing, if you really tick off the people, the anchor company to this hospital, and run the only anchor company to this hospital out of town, Alva County, then you're in trouble. And then what is the goal of really using the taxpayer dollars for?
I think Charles, I think people see through this, and I think they see the risk of losing the hospital that you and I have talked about.
Yeah.
And for that reason alone, they're probably upset about it, not to mention the fact their tax money is used and they're doing something that you normally see in socialist nations. You'd think about something like this going on in Venezuela, or if it was in the United States, maybe San Francisco or Chicago, where socialists run the town or the country. It was this is pretty bad, Charles.
Yeah, and I'm sure if Tenova had no future vision to use that property, they would be willing to sell it to the city if they had no use for it. But I guess them taking the property tells you the answer on that.
I think so. And I spoke with a gentleman today who informed me that that property had been offered to the city. That was about a quarter of a mile from the hospital property from a willing seller. And, you know, the court doesn't have to take that into consideration, but I think they should, because here's some property that Jefferson City could acquire without force and from a willing seller. So
Yeah.
on top of that, you're slapping the hospital in the face and saying, hey, you know, we don't really care about your future plans. We don't care about your future expansion. We don't care about your business enterprise. We just want to take this property selfishly and do something else with it.
Well, here's the point I want to make. And this is what everybody that hears this podcast in Jefferson City, Jefferson County need to understand. If they will do this to a large company and a hospital, what do these people think of you, the small property owner who pays just a fraction of taxes that this hospital pays? If they think this little of this hospital, how little do they think of you? And that should concern you about you should have concerns about every council person and the mayor that made the vote on this. You need to ask them, if you care so little about them, how little do you feel about me?
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect way to say it. You know, if they'll go after to take property from this corporation, this hospital, they'll take yours in a heartbeat and won't think nothing about it.
That's exactly right. And if you think about, Charles, before we get off here, I wanted to remind you that a lot of what we have in this nation depends on property rights.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of everything depends on property rights. You know, if you go back 50 years, you know, I mentioned the other day that we were able to accomplish the engineering and scientific things in the 1960s in the space program because of private property and private enterprise. And if you don't respect that, it's hard to imagine you respecting anything.
Absolutely. And, you know, that's hard to swallow. And, you know, for somebody and for people who love liberty and freedom to know that you've got 3 people in Jefferson City that can do
Right.
this to a corporation, they will not hesitate to doing it to you. And that's what you need to think about.
We, as chairman of the Republican Party in Jefferson County, we've taken a hard position against this property taking, and I've expressed it several ways. One is in a resolution that our party enacted back in June, and another one is a letter that I have sent to the Jefferson City Council, and the other one is a statement that I made in the Jefferson County Standard Banner today, acting as chairman of the party, condemning this property taking as unnecessary.
Yeah. I think I seen where you shared that on Facebook.
Yeah. I did put it out, and if you're the viewer of this podcast, I would urge you to go to my Facebook account, my personal Facebook account, and share this. I think already 20 people have already put it out, and everybody in the city of Jefferson City needs to know what their government's doing.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to share, David, before we wrap this up?
I think we've covered it, Charles. I really appreciate you having me on to let your listeners know about this important issue.
Yeah. Sure thing. And as I said, just keep us updated on it. We'll cover it more if we need to. People, when you see this, share this important information, especially if you live in Jefferson City in Jefferson County, even if you live in the county and you don't live in the city, hey, if this hospital goes away, they run this hospital out of town, out of the city, then it's going to hurt everybody in the county. That's just a fact. So you need to speak up. You need to share this, and you need to show up at the meeting at the Jefferson City Hall, November 21st at 5 p.m. Is that correct?
That is correct. Work session.
And let them know. Be there in numbers, and stand up and let them know you don't appreciate this and you're not going to allow it to happen. So with that, I say thank you, David, for joining me, and we'll get this information out. Tell everybody to share it. God bless you. Thank you for watching this, and share the information, and we'll catch you on the next podcast. Have a great day. Bye-bye.